Hello artists and welcome to Mr. Melvin Makes. Today we will be making a landscape or a picture of a place using a variety of lines. Follow along with me in your own style. To start, we need a permanent marker like a Sharpie and a piece of watercolor paper. I uncap the marker and place the cap on the back so that I don't lose it. Do you know what happens if a marker loses its cap? We will start with a few straight lines to make our landscape. Draw a straight line across the paper about in the middle, like this one here. This line is called the horizon line, and it separates the sky from the ground. Find the middle of that line I just made, and I draw two diagonal lines coming from that point to the bottom of the paper. This will create the shape of a triangle, which will be a vanishing road in my landscape. Next, I'm going to draw a dashed or dotted line coming from the center of the triangle down to the bottom of the page, like this. Now I'm going to use zigzag lines to create some details in my landscape. A little bit above the horizon line, the line I drew first, I'm going to draw a zigzag line from one side of the paper to the other to create a mountain range. I will also add a small zigzag line at the point of each mountain to make it look like these are snow-capped mountains. I can also use zigzag lines to draw grass on the sides of the road. If I draw some grass closer to the bottom of the page, it should appear larger than grass closer to the horizon line. Things that are farther away appear smaller to our eyes. Things that are closer up appear larger. And remember that you can follow along with me in your own style, changing the shapes, placement, or whatever in your drawing to make it your own, not a copy of mine. Just a little bit above the mountain line, I'm going to draw a curved line that stretches from one side of the paper to the other to create some clouds that are popping up right behind my mountains. When I am all done drawing the details of my picture, I will make sure to sign my name somewhere on the front where I and others can see it. I think it's super important to leave my materials better than I found them, so I make sure that I put the cap back on my marker and return it carefully to where I found it. I am planning to paint my picture now with some watercolor paints, so my next step will be to grab those materials and set up for painting. I begin by setting newspaper under my watercolor paper. Do you know why I would do that? With my table protected from messes like paint and other things, I grab a cup of water for my watercolor paint. I also grab a tray of paint like this one here, and I find a paintbrush so that I can work with it. Gather your materials and follow along with me. Remember that you can do this in your own style, so add details in your own way. Maybe you're going to paint along with me, maybe you're going to color with something else. Maybe you'll leave it black and white and add some gray details, some other black details, or something unexpected and cool. Be an artist and be creative. If you are painting with me, it's a good idea to roll up your sleeves so that those don't get messy. You may also want to wear an art smock just to protect your clothes.
And I'll pick a color
it would be terrible to ruin your clothes while you're trying to make a masterpiece.
Ooh, need a little bit more water on my brush, and that's okay. There we go. Activate the...
I generally like to work from top to bottom and left to right. So in the upper left corner of my picture, I am going to add details to color in the sky. If you're painting like me, you may choose a beautiful blue or any other color. If you're adding details in your own style, do it your own way. That's what being an artist is all about. When we are using a tray of watercolor paints like this one, it's super important not to mix the colors. So before I switch to a different color other than the blue that I used for the sky, I need to wash my brush really well in my water cup. Then I can grab my new color and start using it. I chose to leave the color of my clouds white by not painting them and leaving them the color of the paper. It's okay as artists to make decisions like this and to be creative with our artwork. So I began working on coloring in and adding details to my mountains next. Sometimes it can be exciting to look at colors that are blended together nicely. I can do this really easily with paint by putting two colors next to each other, then with just a wet brush, spreading in the paints together so that they mix like this. At this point, I actually chose a color that I do not prefer when I started coloring in the ground. I didn't really like this lime green, and I got a little frustrated after adding it and realizing this wasn't the color for me. Instead of giving up, however, I decided to cover it with a different color. As artists, it's really important that we persist or keep going with our work, even when it gets tricky and tough, challenging, or frustrating. In problem solving from my mistake, I actually learned that I really like the way the teal green mixes with the lime green, and so I decided to blend those two colors together in the foreground, or the part of my landscape that is closest to us as the viewer. Lastly, I use a lot of water and a little bit of black paint to paint in the road gray. What might have happened if I used a little bit of water and a lot of bit of black paint? When I finish painting, it's really important that I wash my brush extra well so that whoever uses it next doesn't find the last color that I was using on the brush tip. I put everything away back better than I found it because I think that that's a really compassionate thing to do for others. When you finish a work of art, I think it's important to look at your work with kind eyes. reminding yourself that you did your best and that was enough. I don't like to be wasteful in the art studio, so if I can use my newspaper again, I will. I hope you try this art challenge in your own style. Make a landscape with a variety of lines. Happy making, artists. Enjoy.